First of all, every candidate who ran on the Republican side opposed the transportation bill, not because we don't believe that we have a major transportation problem, we do, but because we feel in an economy like this, one has to do a cost-benefit analysis whether increasing taxes on people is ultimately going to help us sufficiently to offset what we're going to be able to invest in transportation. My judgment then was that it would not. But I don't want to minimize in any way the importance of transportation reform. We've got to have a better system. I mean, clearly with over 11,000 bridges and culverts that are in disrepair and are reaching their 50-year design limit, 300 new lane miles every year, 20% of our interstate highways in disrepair, up 22 to 36% of the other roads in a state of disrepair. Clearly, we've got to do something. And I'm just not sure that increasing taxes is the long-term solution to the problem, because how much can you increase taxes before people just say enough? I do agree that we needed to change the methodology whereby we collect taxes on gasoline. And I think making it a percentage rather than a fixed amount is certainly a reasonable way to go. Making it on wholesale rather than retail is a reasonable way to go. But I think when you get to the other increases in taxes, I think that you have now added a new tax burden, $3 billion to the Virginia taxpayer, and it's not a long-term solution to the problem. It clearly is not going to solve our transportation problems, because our transportation problems are clearly long-term, given the growth of our state and given the transportation needs we have. I think you got to bring free market principles to bear. I think you got to do more with public-private partnerships. I think you got to figure out ways to get the funding that we need on an ongoing basis to sustain rail, to sustain the building of new highways in Hampton Roads particularly, and Northern Virginia particularly, and to do the repairs that we need to do, which costs us about $500 million a year just to maintain. And I think that the way to do that is, first of all, you break those into 3 discrete parts rather than trying to handle the whole thing. For example, in Northern Virginia, we've got a pretty good metro system, but we have a problem. And the problem is that when we designed the metro system, nobody thought about the fact that the metro system is not as much use to you as it would be if people can't find the parking that they need to use the metro system. So clearly we didn't think through that as well as we could have. And while the Dulles Rail is a fact now, I think a lot of people are looking at it now saying, you know, buses would have been a lot cheaper and a lot more efficient way to transport people from Dulles into the city. So I think if we break these things into discrete parts, repairs, new roads, and rail, and think about them as separate, maybe have commissions that study those as separate and discrete parts of our transportation system, and then come together to see how these parts interact, keeping in mind efficiency, effectiveness in terms of transporting people, and keeping in mind long-term cost. How much will this cost the taxpayer? And can we build in a free market principles and interaction with the private sector that would allow us to pay for transportation without increasing taxes needlessly on the taxpayer? I think that's the way we need to approach transportation. In the meantime, Ken Cuccinelli has made clear that he has no intention of trying to undo the transportation bill, but rather in trying to make sure that the funds that are collected under that bill are spent as efficiently and effectively as possible.